What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are sitting down to do another listener Q&A with questions that are taken from my TikTok community. So I say this at the beginning of every one of these videos, but if you guys are not following me on TikTok, not only are you guys missing out on some great content, but you are also missing out on the opportunity to get your questions answered on these types of Q&As. So I leave my TikTok in the description of all of my videos, so please follow me on there if you guys haven't already. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get right into the first question here. So first question is from 0-10-28-37-28-293, and they ask, can you explain training with intent? I get using cues to target muscles, but at the end of the day, muscles do jobs in terms of movement. So does it really matter that much since muscles will naturally involve a muscle? So that is a really good question. So basically what they are asking is, if I do this with my arm, my bicep is the only thing that can cause this bone to move. Do I have to subconsciously think about contracting my bicep in order to do this? Well, I have a picture on my computer. I'm going to try and find it and I'll overlay it here on this video. And it's a graph. It's going to be very vague, but it is a study. I forgot where it was out of, but it is EMG data that has, it shows a couple reps and it shows basically the difference between someone doing a normal bicep curl and then someone doing a bicep curl while subconsciously focusing on the contraction. And you can tell from the EMG data that they get much more bicep muscle fiber recruitment by subconsciously thinking about what they are doing. So again, the graph is going to be very vague, but I think it's going to really illustrate the point here. I do believe that it is in your best interest to subconsciously focus on what you are doing in the gym and focus on recruiting the target muscle. I think not only does it recruit muscle fiber recruitment, but I think it's also going to be a real good telling point which exercises work for you. Hopefully you guys have noticed within my training videos that I'm a big fan of just kind of picking a few movements and then getting really good at them. And so I would rather just do like one bicep curl that feels amazing than do two bicep curls that feel kind of good. So I do think that the pump and the contraction that you get is an indicator of whether or not you are connecting well with an exercise. So I do think it's in your best interest to kind of think about what you're doing there. I think, yes, even though muscles do move bones through movement, and technically you don't have to probably think about what you're doing, I think if you don't think about what you're doing, you may have other muscles that try and take over. Like, for example, if you don't think about initiating a bicep curl with the bicep, you may initiate it with the front delt and use a lot of shoulder movement to kind of finish that rep. If you don't think about initiating a fly or a press with your pec, you may initiate it with the front delt or the tricep. So yes, in a nutshell, I do think that it is in your best interest to focus on what you're doing mentally in the gym. Your 3012 asks, sciatic back pain only on seated leg curls. Why is that? Well, almost impossible for me to answer without seeing any footage, and also I'm not really a spinal specialist, so this may not be my area of expertise. The only thing that I can really think of is that if this is the only exercise that you're experiencing that pain on, it has to be the way that you're sitting in the machine or the way that the machine is designed that is putting some compression on that sciatic nerve. So the long and short of this is you don't need to do seated leg curls. You can train the hamstring with a dumbbell ham curl, a standing hamstring curl, a lying hamstring curl. There are a lot of different variations that you can train the hamstring with. I do like the seated leg curl. It's my preferred hamstring curl variation, but there is no must-do exercise. And if the exercise and the machine that you're doing these seated leg curls on is designed poorly and it's only causing you injury, then it's definitely something that you should not do. So the first thing that I would do is probably play around with your setup and see if you can find a way to set up in the machine that doesn't cause you pain. But if you try a bunch of different setups and you can't find any way to relieve that sciatic pain, and this is the only exercise that's causing you sciatic pain, then I would just completely bail on it and remove it from your programming entirely. Ardeli Razvan, I hope that I pronounced that right, asks, when is it best to start my bulk? So this is a pretty vague question. I would say in general, the best time to start a bulk is going to be after you have completed a successful dieting phase and that you are respectably lean. And the reason for that is that the leaner you are when you start the bulk, the more runway that you're going to have to increase your body weight without starting to get really fat. So I'm going to make like a hypothetical example here. Let's say I'm 200 pounds and I'm really, really lean and I'm starting a bulk. I may be able to bulk all the way up till 230, 240 before I finally start to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm getting really fat. Now, let's say I start a bulk at 220. I may only be able to push till 230 or 240 before I get really fat again. And obviously, if I'm starting at 200, I have a 30 to 40 pound runway to gain weight. And if I start at 220, I have a 10 to 20 pound runway to gain weight. So in an ideal scenario, I do think that after you've finished a dieting phase and you're respectably lean would probably be the best time to start a bulk. But I don't want that to get misconstrued that that's like the only time to start a bulk. I've done plenty of bulking phases in my life where I've only pushed up 10 to 20 pounds. But I don't think you have to do these 30 to 40 pound push-ups, but I think that that's going to give you your best returns on muscle mass. So if the 30 to 40 pound push-up is something that you want to do, then I would diet first and get pretty respectably lean before you start that. Tadeo Taha, again, I hope I pronounced that right. They ask, I know the full day of eating video is kind of old, but why so much carbs and so little fat? When I bulk, I'm annoyed how watery I am from all the carbs. So lots to unpack here. So I personally prefer to diet with higher carbs and lower fat because I find that my training is better and I find that my digestion is better and it's easier for me to eat larger amounts of food. I understand that fats have more calories per gram, but one of the things that really bothers me with fats is when I eat higher fat meals, they take forever to digest for me and they kind of sit in my stomach forever. Whereas if I eat protein and carb meals that are really low in fat, especially if the carbs come from a rice product, 2 hours later I'm ready to eat again because the digestion has happened so much quicker. So I just personally prefer to have higher carbs than fats for digestive purposes and also for training performance purposes. Obviously, the more carbs that I eat, the more muscle glycogen that I have, the longer and harder that I can train because I have more fuel to fuel that. Also, you talk about how watery you get from carbohydrates. That's temporary. If you're eating lots and lots of carbohydrates and you're always retaining water, that's probably, there could potentially be something else going on there. I mean, when you increase your carbohydrates, you're gonna store water temporarily because glycogen brings water with it, but eventually your body is gonna equal out and get into homeostasis. So it's not really something that I think is long-term and something that I think that you should really be worried about in terms of the water retention. And also the bloat and the water retention helps you in the gym. It makes you stronger in the gym, you have more cushion. Power lifters have been intentionally bloating themselves before competitions for decades. So I don't personally see that is a problem. Also, another thing that's worth mentioning, because someone's inevitably going to mention something about fats controlling hormones. Two things, I inject my hormones, and so I don't need food to regulate my hormone production within my body. I regulate my own hormone production. And two, I think that the amount of dietary fat that we need in order to regulate those hormones is probably a little over exaggerated than what a lot of people say. So I know lots and lots of natural guys that can go pretty low on fat and still feel pretty fine. Now, I wouldn't recommend they do that long term, but I know that they can do it for stints of time with no problem. So I think as long as you're getting your omega-3 fatty acids in and your fish oils and your good healthy fats, I don't think going too low on fat is really a massive problem, personally. Another question from user 1028, and they ask, when looking to prioritize arms, would it make more sense to increase frequency per week or to program a dedicated arm day? Both. I probably wouldn't start off with doing both. The way that I would probably set it up is take a look at your current programming right now and see where you can add extra arm frequency. So for example, I train my arms on my leg days just to increase the training frequency that I hit them on. So you would have to take a look at your personal split, see where in your split that you can tack on some more arm work. I would not tack on more arm work the day after you already did some work, so I would never train a muscle 2 days in a row. But maybe if you do like push on Monday and then you take a day off on Tuesday and then you do legs on Wednesday, you can do some tricep work in the push day and then you'll be off Tuesday, and then on Wednesday maybe you can throw in some bicep or a little more tricep work just to increase the frequency. So I would start off by doing that, and then if you are doing that, you're increasing your frequency, you're choosing appropriate exercises, and you're progressing your lifts and working within total volume that you can recover from and progress every time you come into the gym, and your arms are still not growing, then I would probably add an additional arm day. And then you could, I would still keep in that extra frequency that you had throughout your program. So for example, maybe you change your split to push, pull, legs, arms, and you do a little bit of tricep work in the push day, you do a little bit of bicep work in the pull day, and then you use legs as a day where you don't hit your arms, and then you hit both bis and tris on the arm day, take a day off, and repeat. So there are a couple different ways that you can go about it. I would personally look to just increase the frequency of your arm training where you are right now. I think if you can avoid it, having an entire day that's just dedicated to arms is kind of a waste of time. I think that I would just rather go in the gym and do a session that involves some big heavy compound lifts than go into the gym and just do a day of elbow flexing and extending. But if your physique needs it, then that may be something that you have to do. But I would try to put off the dedicated arm day for as long as you can and just see where you can increase your arm frequency within your current programming. Next question from 36181762. They ask, if you binge eat 8,000 calories on a bulk, should you lower calories for the following days or eat the same you've been eating? So 2 things to unpack here. First, I would probably eat less over the course of the next coming days. If you continue to eat in a surplus the day after, a couple days after you ate in a massive surplus, you're probably just going to get pretty chunky. But the bigger thing here, and the thing that really needs to get addressed, is I think you need to ask yourself why you're eating so much food in one period of time. And I think the answer is pretty obvious, and that is that whoever this is needs to improve their relationship with food. Let's just call a spade and be 100% real with this. The only way that you eat 8,000 calories in one sitting is sitting down and eating like a complete jackass, eating pizza, ice cream, cookie, you name it, and eating an entire pizza, an entire thing of ice cream. That's the only way that you get 8,000 calories is by eating stuff like that. And I think that you need to improve your relationship with food, and I think that you need to get yourself into a position where you don't feel the need that you have to eat that much food in one sitting. I've talked about binge eating a lot, but it's a psychological problem, and it's a problem that stems from having a really poor relationship with food. So I think you guys maybe need to realize that it is possible for you to go out with your friends and family and have pizza and only have like 2 or 3 pieces. It is possible to go out for ice cream with your boyfriend and girlfriend and only have the small sized ice cream and only get 1 or 2 toppings instead of getting every single topping that they have on the menu. I think that people need to get better at incorporating the foods that they like into their daily diet, but not incorporating them into amounts that are ridiculous and asinine, because to be 100% honest, as I've already said, the only way that you eat 8, 9, 10,000 calories in one day is by sitting down and just eating like a complete jackass. So I think that's what you really need to get to the bottom of is your food relationship. Next question comes from Gabe Hine, and they ask, after a mini cut phase, do you go back to your previous caloric intake or do you slowly bump up calories? The answer to this is it depends. So I'm going to kind of paint out 2 scenarios here. let's say you finish the mini cut and you're happy with where your body fat percentage is. You're lean enough, you're ready to get eating more food and gaining weight again. I would just get aggressive and I would just start putting food back in. Let's say you finish your mini cut and you're still a little unhappy with where your body fat percentage is. At that point, I would slowly add food back in and kind of reverse diet out of that mini cut. And the reason for that is, let's say that you're at like a 1,000 calorie deficit and you add 200 calories each week as you diet out of, or reverse diet out of that mini cut. It's going to take you 5 weeks just to get back to caloric maintenance, which means that you're going to extend your diet by another 5 weeks. But if you're unhappy with your body fat percentage, that's going to allow you to take off a couple more pounds of body fat while at the same time adding in more food and kind of getting rid of the fatigue that you've accumulated over the course of the mini cut. So I think it really depends on where you're at and how happy you are with your physique at the end of that mini cut, depending on what you should do. But for the most part, I think that people should be dieting to a point where they're happy with their body fat and they're just ready to get back to gaining again. And so in that case, I would just add in food pretty aggressively. Okay, last question here comes from Oser 980. I hope I said that right. They ask, is gaining significant strength on calisthenic movements, examples, weighted chins and dips, while gaining weight on a bulk, a good sign of muscle gain? So yes, if you're talking about weighted exercises, like if you're getting better at your weighted chin-ups and your weighted dips while also gaining weight, you probably are building muscle in those areas. If you're talking about calisthenics in the sense of like body weight exercises, probably not. I think it's pretty established that body weight exercises are not really the best indicators or precursors to muscle growth. I think that we need progressive increased weight and tension in order to stimulate muscle growth optimally. So if you're talking about weighted variations, yes, for sure. But if you're talking about body weight variations of calisthenic movements, probably not. I would start doing something with a little more load and a little more challenge. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up today's Q&A video. Thank you so much to everyone who put questions forward as usual. Again, guys, if you have questions that you want to get answered on these videos, please follow me on TikTok and keep a lookout for my next Q&A video. That will be your opportunity to get your questions answered. As always, guys, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment and I will get back to you guys as soon as I can. And as always, take care of yourselves.